Hey friends, it's Carol, Saltbox Stitcher. How are you today? It's Thursday, let's see, July 16th. I did my last video probably about a month ago, so I decided it was time to do another one. So yesterday I got all set up, spent over an hour recording just to find that something happened and it didn't record. Looked like it was recording, but somehow it didn't save or something. I don't know. So this is episode number 25, take two. My mom used to say, well, maybe you didn't hold your mouth quite right when something didn't work. So I put lipstick on so that when I hold my mouth just right, it looks okay. So anyway, enough of being silly. This is a video about mostly cross stitch with a little bit of quilting. So I'm going to get right into it. It's kind of hard for me to do a video when I have been monogamously stitching, and so I really don't have a lot to show. But I can always show things that I've stitched in the last few months or in the last year, especially since I have a lot of new subscribers, which, by the way, I'm due to give away another quilt, and I will do that on my next video because I think I'm past 7,000 subscribers, which is just kind of incredible to me. But anyway, thank you to all of you who subscribe and want to see all my silly rantings. But anyway, so I don't really have a lot to show, but I decided I would show you some of the pieces I have been working on and also some of the pieces that I've done in the past. And then there's always a plethora of things I can show you that I want to stitch. So let's get started. So at the beginning of the time since my last video, what did I do with it? It's probably underneath this whole big stack. Well, anyway, when I come to it, I'll show it to you. But I worked a little bit on Flag Folk, which is by Not Forgotten Farm. I'm doing it on a piece of 32 count Murky. So I have some whips here that I was going to show you. So it's somewhere in that stack. And if I dig for it, everything's going to fall on the floor. And we don't want that. So what I actually started shortly after my last video was the Smith Sampler by Scarlet House. This is the chart. I'll take it out of the package so y'all can see it without glare. And I've had this kitted since it came out, which I think was 2017. It was a market release by Tanya, the Scarlet House. And at the time, there were people that stitched it right away. I kitted it, but I just had never gotten to it. And just a little advertisement for the Scarlet House. Her charts are wonderful. They're very easy to read. Her colors are spot on. It's a joy to stitch them. She always has a DMC version, as well as a lot of times she does her samplers in silks. So anyway, I've had this kitted. It actually calls for, well, the model was stitched on vintage autumn gold, but I decided to do it on 40 count vintage meadow rue. So, I write in my little book, the Calendar of Days, or Book of Days by Needlework Press, what I stitch on every day. And if I stitch on the same things, I just put an arrow. I mean, this is just for me, so it doesn't really have to be perfect. But anyway, so I started stitching on this. Well, let's see, when did I start stitching on it? Oh, please. It was actually right after my last video. So it was June 18th. And I've stitched on it as of yesterday for 21 days. Now, it's been more than a month since I started it, but there were days I didn't do any stitching. Lindsay moved, and there's just been other stuff. I'm kind of hoarse because I've had bronchitis, so we'll see how long how long my voice lasts. But, and here's my progress. I am 99% finished. So this is the Smith Sampler by the Scarlet House. The only thing I have left to do, if you'll notice here, this motif right here, it has red, and I have to go around and do that to all of those. In addition, these little triangles at the top, well, they go all the way around, or they go around 3 sides. They have like 3 colors, little stripes within them, and so that's what I need to go around and finish. But the actual stitching of the main part of the chart is all finished. And the reason I tell you, or that I keep track of how many days I work on something, is because I'm no spring chicken. So I figure if I can do a sampler in, a month, which is about what it's taken me to finish that, then I can do 10 or so a year. And, if I have 10 more years of stitching, that's 100 samplers I can finish. I don't know what I would do with them all. I guess I'd hang them from the ceiling, make wallpaper in my rooms or something. So anyway, that's what I've been working on. I'm going to finish it tonight, so this will be the 22nd day that I've worked on it. And I do stitch primarily at night. I've told you all that before. During the day, I usually either craft or work on customers' quilts because I have a long arm business, or I sew because I'm still piecing quilts. Again, I'm not sure why, because I have plenty. I could wallpaper the house with quilts too. So anyway, so I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to stitch on next. That's always a challenge for me because it's, you finish something, you get to where you know the symbols by heart, you're just like into it, and then it's finished, and it's like, okay, it's like a roller coaster ride at the park, and then you're like, oh, that was fun. Now, what do I want to ride on next? And you just look around like, I don't know. So anyway, I have a number of things that I want to possibly stitch. So I thought I would show you some of my whips too, because this is just some of my whips. I don't have a whole lot, but I have enough that I need to finish some of them. And at one time, I had this great plan to do whips on the weekends, and for some reason that went kapooey. So I need to get back to doing that because that's a good way for me to get back to some of these whips and get them knocked out and get them finished. So anyway, so I'm going to pause here for a minute because I'm going to get some of these whips, and so they don't all fall on the floor. Some of these whips are things that are in various stages of completion. Some of them I've barely started, and others, I have quite a bit done. The first one that I have to finish, without a doubt, is Esther Idison. And this is the one I keep talking about, and somehow I haven't finished. The only thing I have left to do, this is by Jessie and me. And the only thing I have left to do is the snake around the tree in the middle and the over one at the bottom. So I'm going to try to concentrate on that this weekend. Sometimes over one I can do in hand, and sometimes over one I need to use a hoop. I have a hoop, and I just looked on Brenda Gervais' website, and I don't see that it's in stock, but I have this small hoop that I bought from her at the Midwest Cross Stitch Retreat. She was the guest designer, and she had a little store set up. Now, when she does over one, I thought this was so interesting. She puts it in a hoop, but she has enough play in her hoop that she actually can stitch from the top or stitch in. It's not really in hand because it's in a hoop, but she has enough play to be able to stitch it rather than going in and out. So I may try to do that. And also then I have some beading needles. These, you have to make sure you get the tapestry point beading needles. I got these from the attic. And this is a size 10. I've also used a 12. In needles, the larger the number, the smaller the needle. But it's a finer needle, so it's great for doing over one, especially if you have thicker floss, like the cotton floss or, something. So anyway, I guess you probably wanted to see the front of that pattern. I've showed it lots and lots before. Esther Edison by Chessie and Me. So that's a must. That will be this coming weekend, come heck or high water, so they say. And then the rest of them I'm just kind of going to go through randomly. This is the ES Spot Sampler by A Female Worth. I had a really hard time finding this. I finally did after a couple of years of searching. I think a long time ago Country Sampler had it as a kit, but I missed out on it back then. But in the meantime, I searched and searched, and I finally was able to get a copy. Which, by the way, I have people all the time ask me if they, if I have such and such chart and if I will sell it to them or whatever. I don't sell my used charts, mainly because my daughter stitches, and even though she has 2 kids and like they're at a state tournament this weekend for baseball, so she's very busy with her kids and with her work. But at some point, I know she'll probably come back to stitching. So I think the things that I have are pretty timeless. I don't do a lot of real cutesy things that kind of tend to go out of style. So I save them for her, and then if she decides at some point after I'm gone that she wants to kick them to the curb, so be it. Also, my sister stitches, and there's things that I have given to her or loaned to her to stitch. So that's one of the reasons that I don't sell my patterns that I've already stitched. Anyway, ES Spot Sampler. I've showed you this before. All I have is the border done, the border outline, and these are the colors. So that's one I really want to get back to. You're going to hear that a lot. I want to get back to that. I want to get back to that. I want to get back to that. And that's kind of, just the nature of stitching. I do sometimes reach a point where I'm at a sampler and I'm like, maybe, I don't know, 3/4 of the way done, and I think, I'd kind of like to stitch on something else. But there's just something in me that wants it finished. And so I just am like, okay, I'm going to power through this and just get it done. Because now, if I had that theory and that mindset with all of my whips, I wouldn't have any whips. But I do occasionally get that. So why do you believe anything I say? It's like 10 minutes from now, I'll be like, did I say that? And when I found out yesterday, my husband had left, and he said, oh, the computer's all set up. All you have to do is record. So I did. And so then he came home, and I said, I did a video. And he's like, okay. Which, by the way, when it goes light and dark, it's because the sun goes behind a cloud. Or, comes back out and it gets lighter in my room, because we have a lot of windows in this room. But anyway, so he said, well, your video's not here. I'm like, what? That's never happened. So, I don't know. It went somewhere in cyberspace. He looked and looked and looked, called Apple support, everything. He could not retrieve it. So somewhere there's some little person out there, some other country, that's like, whoa, look what just showed up on my account. Some lady talking about cross stitch. Craziness. Okay, the next whip I have that this is a newer release. So I go from one that's not available anymore to a newer release. And this one is Manor at Quaker Hill by Brenda Gervais. She released this at Market. This is one of those ones, I think, especially when they come in a half-size pattern, you tend to think, oh, well, that's going to be a smaller piece. No, this one's pretty big. And I don't care. It doesn't matter to me if it's a full-page pattern or if it's a half-size pattern. So this is my progress on this one. And I'm doing it on, it calls for Velt, but I decided to do it on, hold please, Fawn, 40 count Fawn by Pictures Plus. So it's a little more tan. Legacy that it calls for tends to have a greenish hue. So that's one I need to get back to. This is one I really want to get back to. Push record. This is one I really want to get back to. Then I can just continue. This is Miss Manners by GGR. This is the antique. I've mentioned before, her charts have the antique on the picture rather than a stitch reproduction. So you have to imagine what it'll look like. I have a conversion from the attic for silks. And this is where I am. So I have quite a bit done on this. I have the outline of the border. I have the flowers. I'm starting the leaves. I kind of jumped all around on this one. Not sure why. Just for fun, I think. And I really like this. There's a couple people that have been working on it, and I first saw it on Carolyn Stash Sisters video. I think that's the first place I saw anybody working on it. I don't think she's finished hers. The next one is by Blackbird, All Joys for Thine. And this one, I think, also came out at Market. Or maybe it was a pre-Market release. I can't remember. Doesn't have a date on it. Oh, it does, 2020. So yes, it came out this year. Quite a few people have finished this. It's not big at all, so this will be a quick finish if I ever get back to it. I will. And I've mentioned before, I tend to do the border first. I just like that, the stability of doing the border first, and then everything I can base off of the border. So if my border's true, then, you know, I don't have as much to worry about. The next one is Mary Good by Sassafras Samplers, which is Sassy Jack's exclusive. I know Brenda has finished this. A couple other people. I guess I haven't been telling you what linen I'm using. All Joys for Thine is on Heartland by Picture This Plus. Miss Manners is on Light Exemplar by Lakeside. This is Mary Good. So I have the border outline. It actually is a double border because it's green and then pink. And I have the first line. This one doesn't have any over one. So that's kind of nice. Kind of a nice treat. I don't think it does. No. I think, yeah, I think all of it is over 1/2. Let me tell you that for sure. Yes, no over 1. And I'm using the Aversois silks. And there's quite a bit of pinks and reds and some olivey greens. It's very pretty. So that one will be, it's a little bit of change of color for me. I usually tend to do a little bit darker colors. I don't usually do a lot of pinks. Not that I'm opposed to pink, but technically it's a tone of red, so I should love it. And here's my flag folk that I said I had worked on a little bit this month. This was a kit from Country Sampler. It's by Not Forgotten Farm, flag folk. It's cute, it's very primitive. And this is actually on 32 count Murky, and I'm using 1 strand. Now, Murky is by Picture This Plus, and Picture This Plus linen just tends to be, I think each particular linen thread is a little bit thicker. So the weave is a little tighter, even though it's the same, 32 counts, 32 count, whether it's weeks or whatever, but it just feels like it's a little bit tighter woven. So I did get a start on this. I worked on this the week before Independence Day, which, by the way, happy 4th of July passed. And there's the colors. It is a Country Sampler conversion, but it's mostly the called for. When you work on Murky, because it has these large patches of dark and light, I chose to start up here where there's a bigger light section. So some of it will be on the dark, but had I started like here, a lot of it would be harder to see, I think. And this is one of the few charts that I've ever, I actually scanned it into my, not scanned it, I took a screenshot and then put it into notes in my iPad, and then I stitched from my iPad, because Not Forgotten Farm, their charts are very they're just really hard to read because the symbols are so small. So when you put it into a device, rather than try to increase it on a printer, if you put it into a device, you can what's that called? Make it bigger. So that's what I've done, and that really has helped being able to stitch that. The next one is another Blackbird, and this is Maria Selby Humphrey, 1831. I believe this is the antique. They don't really usually do tree reproductions from Blackbird. They will adapt, like this is adapted from parts of this. And this I'm doing on, good question. I think this is, I'm pretty sure this is Sand Dune by Lakeside, vintage Sand Dune. I have quite a bit of the top finished. I kind of got a little bit bored with the alphabets. I like doing alphabets, but sometimes when there's 5 or 6 rows of them, it can get a little tedious. So, and this is one that has what I call a ghost alphabet right here. And I'm just using the called for colors. Very blue, gray, tan, gold, brown, with a little bit of blue. Maria Selby Humphrey, 1831 by Blackbird. Are you counting? Count. And that is all of my whips that I want to work on. I have other whips, and other whips that I really want to finish. Although, did you hear me say to any of them, I don't know if I'll ever finish this one. Generally, well, I have to say, if I start something, I have a desire to finish it. I rarely just chuck it. I guess I'm too old. Not too old, but I'm old enough that I really respect my time. And if I've put hours of time stitching something, the idea of chucking it, I did have one piece that I chucked. It was an older, I don't even remember who it was by. And I had this brilliant decision. I was going to stitch it on 30 count, like raw linen. And I got the border done and like one of the motifs. And I'm like, what am I thinking? I just chucked it. It was really small. And I didn't have a whole lot done on it. So anyway. So what do you want to see next? Let's start with, okay, so I grabbed some pieces that I have finished that are not framed. I would love to have most of these framed. And a couple of them are small enough I could probably frame them myself. I just haven't. So anyway, and then I'm going to talk about some things I have kitted that I want to stitch. I've got a lifetime invested in all this stuff. So these are ones that have either, I did them this year, some of them I did last year, some of them are older than that, but for the most part, and these aren't smalls. I have a lot of smalls that I've finished that I just need to fully finish, which I had really kind of hoped to fully finish the other day, some things, but with my bronchitis, I just kind of didn't feel that great, and so didn't get done. I watched a couple of Vanna's tutorials. One was on finishing a drum. Highly recommend. Excellent. I've done not quite a few, but I've done some drums, and I learned some things, not that I'm not able to learn anything, but there's just tips and tricks that she gives you that are just, really valuable. The other one I watched by Vanna, and Vanna is Vanna Pfeiffer, the Twisted Stitcher, and she does fabulous tutorials. She used to have a lot more up. She's taken some of them down. The other one I watched was on finishing a strawberry. Very, very good. Very good. So I have a couple of things that I want to finish into drums. I think I have 3 or 4 pieces I want to finish. And I will watch it again as I'm doing the finishing because that's just how great I think her tutorials are. So anyway, I'm going to go through ones that, and some of these, well, probably all of them you've seen at one point in time, but I'll just give you a little parade. This is Oh Joyous Day by Blackbird Designs. Don't ask me what it's stitched on. It's a Picture This Plus. I want to say Heartland, but I'm not sure. It's the called for. Oh Joyous Day. The only thing I changed was right above the house. I put my initials, and I added a bird because this was supposed to be, or this was originally designed as kind of like a wedding sampler, and I didn't really want to do that. And then we have Mary Bars that I finished this year. This is definitely one I want to have framed. And this is by Stacy Nash. So that's another one that I have finished this year. This one is done on 36 count old parchment by weeks. In other words, it's not on the Zweigart base. It's just whatever they used to use for their linen base. So that's Mary Barr's. This one is, and I had to get out the pattern because I couldn't remember who it was by. It's called Christmas in My Heart by Samplers Not Forgotten. This was a country sampler kit. This is one I possibly could frame myself because it's not huge. It's maybe 10 by 12. Might even fit in a standard frame, but I don't think so. It's almost square. Christmas in My Heart, Samplers Not Forgotten. And this one is on some kind of weeks. I want to say it's like straw or cocoa. I'm pretty sure it's 30. No, it might be 40 count. Yeah, I think it's 40 count. Might be 36. This one is a red chair, little red chair sampler by the Scarlet House. And this one is on 40 count Meadow Rue by Lakeside Linen. I'm pretty sure. You know, if I got out the patterns for them, I usually write down, or if I went through my book, I could tell you the exact linen, but this is just a parade. You don't have to know how the float was made. Just watch the parade. This is Merrily, Merrily We Welcome Spring by Blackbird. This was one, the alphabets got a little tedious. I had put it away for a little while. Plus my border is off. But not enough that you'd notice. And this inner little border here that's blue, right there, it's true. So I based everything on that. Merrily, Merrily We Welcome Spring by Blackbird. It's on a Picture This Plus again, but I'm not sure which one. This is the red chair sampler. Red chair. That was one I did a little bit ago. This is the Red House sampler by Brenda Keys, also known as the Sampler Company. Love this. This is probably one of the first ones. This one and Mary Barr's, I think, are what I'm going to send to be framed. And then I'll rob a bank in the meantime. Pay for them. This is a Blackbird. For some reason, this just escapes my memory, and I couldn't find the chart. It's a book. It's piece something. Or deck. Is it Deck the Halls? I don't know. I'm sorry. But it's definitely a Blackbird. Again, on Picture This Plus. Blackbird has used a lot of Picture This Plus recently. Picture This Plus is located in, I think, still in Kansas. And they're Kansas, Missouri girls. So this one is Winter Is Past. This is another one I could probably frame myself because it's not huge. Again, Picture This Plus. This might be on Wren. Winter Is Past by Blackbird. This is one I stitched a long time ago. And I can't even tell you. I think it's also a Picture This Plus linen. It's, I think it's the Needleworker Sampler. It's by Brenda Gervais with Thy Needle and Thread. And like I said, I did this a long time ago. This was on 40 count. This is the American Sampler by Plum Street. I think it's called American Sampler. Did this one last summer. This one's Mary Cook by Scarlet House. It's a bigger one. It almost looks like You know, when kids are starting to learn to print and they give them those pieces of paper that have the lines are big and then they have the little dotted line in between so that they can make their letters and have plenty of room. That's what this sampler reminds me of. It's like, because it's so big and all the words are over 2, but I love it. It has some good reds in it. Mary Cook by the Scarlet House. I'd like to have that one framed. This one is Jane Stanwick's. I think this was a kit from Country Sampler, but I'm not 100% sure. Love the red house. There's other people that have stitched this. And this one is by, I got out the pattern because I couldn't remember who it was by. It's by Samplers Revisited. Jane Stanwick's. And yes, it's definitely a Country Sampler kit because there's she used different, there's a conversion that Country Sampler did. So if you wanted the same colors, you'd have to contact Country Sampler. Ooh, sun really went behind a cloud. This one is Elizabeth Hunter by the Scarlet House. This is one that Brenda has the original antique on her wall. But Tanya from the Scarlet House charted it, and I think it's gorgeous. I did that one last year, I think. And then the last one that I pulled to show you is Sarah Casey Unwin by Chessie and Me. This one, did I do this year or last year? I can't remember. I think I did it last year. Love the big red house and the deer. So if anybody wants to give me $1 million so I can get all those framed, that would be greatly appreciated. No, I think I just want to start sending, 1 or 2 at a time. And just stop stitching because as soon as I send one, I'm going to have something finished. It's like I can't get a... What is it? My mom used to say you can't win for losing. Okay, now I'm going to show you some things that I really want to stitch. A few of my kitted ones. This is Yuletide Welcome by Plum Street. I have done Yuletide and I've done Liberty's Welcome. And I probably am going to start on the bottom so I can get right to this yard, because that's a lot of solid stitching, which I love. And I want to get to that so I can get started on that before. I love solid stitching. It calls for 36 count sand dune, and the colors are by Lakeside Linens. Their colors are pretty, neutral browns. There's a tiny bit of reddish. It's kind of a mulberry color. It's NPI Silks. But there's a gold in here. And one of my sand dunes I wanted to do it on 40 count, but one of my sand that I had was kind of goldish. I was afraid this wouldn't show up. So I had a piece of 36 count, which is really what it calls for. And I think that'll work. This has a little more brown cast. So I may start this like soon, next week. We'll see. Whatever. It's my fancy. Sorry. This may not go too much longer because I don't think you want to just sit and look at me and not listen. Maybe you do. I don't know. So if you ever want to see a parade of stitch things, go to Nicole's Needlework. I think she did it either last year, maybe the year before even. And she has 3 videos that are called 20 Years of Stitching. And she has number 1, number 2, and number 3. And she pulls out her big bin of pieces that she stitched, not framed. And so in that, I saw a piece that I had kitted, and I thought, well, I had it kitted, but I was missing a few. So I thought, I've always wanted to stitch that. And it's called The Paradise Lost by Plum Street. It's basically an Adam and Eve sampler, but it's a little bit different. I absolutely love this giraffe. And I love this lion. So anyway, I was missing a few NPIs that I had to order. You can do NPI or you can do DMC. And I haven't picked a linen yet. It calls for 36 count vintage light exemplar, which I have. But I really want to do this. It's just different. So that's kitted. And in line with that is another one that Plum Street did. There's also one called The Flood. I didn't pull that, but that's another one I really would like to do. This is all part of my eventual Sunday school wall. This is Brother's Keeper by Cain and Abel. I don't know when these, oh no, 2012, this one came out. I would think you could still get it. I don't know. Kind of has a Hawk Run Hollow feel with the different blocks. And this one I'm going to do on a piece of, this is called Vintage Luna by Lakeside. 36 count Vintage Luna. It's even a little bit lighter than Light Exemplar. So the colors are going to just show up fabulous. There's quite a few like kind of golds and tans, so I didn't want to go too dark with my linen because I wanted those to be able to show up. See, that's the only trouble when all this new stuff comes out, and then you still have other ones that you've had for a while that you really want to stitch. This is one that's by Carriage House, Mind Independent and Free. I think it ends up being like 6 by 29 or 28. The only place I've ever seen it stitched was on Carol Sims, which is Sampler Farm. I saw it on one of her walls. And if you follow her on Instagram or Facebook for that matter, if you message her and say, you know, what's the one that's third on the right, she'll tell you what the name of it was. And I think that's how I found out about this one. I just love it. It's just different. So this one I have kitted with NPIs. It only takes, I don't have them on a ring. It only takes like 6 or 7 NPIs, one of which is this bright orange and this yellow, which I may switch out and go to a gold and more of a reddish because I can. I don't think this is a reproduction, but I could be wrong. I haven't read the info on it enough to know if that's a reproduction or not. But I think that'd be cool to have that, you know, on a wall, that long skinny piece. The next couple are by Teresa Kogut. Can you see this one without me taking it out? This is Heaven and Nature by Teresa Kogut. It's very Christmas, obviously. And this one, I have a piece of Let me show you the colors first. Again, I don't have them on a ring, but they're very deep, rich reds, golds, and greens. Obviously Christmas colors. I have a piece of Tobias, which I got from Seraphim. This is the back and this is the front. So I'll use this. Seraphim Fabrics. It's actually called Seraphim Hand Dyed Fabric by Lori. And I know the attic talked about having some. I don't know if they had Tobias. And Fire Poppies has had it. I know Nicole got some Dusty Road that she's doing her, the Lilies one by Heartstrings Samplery. She's doing that on a piece called Dusty Road. This is another one that I'm not going to take it out of the bag, but is recently released. Everybody's gaga over it. And I actually am getting the silks from the attic because I'd like to do that in silk. A lot of people are debating about the tin roof fabric that it calls for, which is a little bit darker. And the picture on the front's a little deceiving because it looks like it's a lighter fabric. This is the tin roof. This is a piece I had from Quilters Stitcher called Pool Party, one of her own hand-dyed fabrics that I may use because it has the same, it's just a different value, but it has the same color, kind of greenish, bluish color. The next two are by Brenda Keys. This one is called, what is this called? Plant Wisdom by a sampler company, Brenda Keys. This is the same company that I did my Red House sampler. And I just watched Inspired Needles Floss Tube yesterday, and Kathy, I think her name's Kathy. Kathy, the owner, is stitching this. She had this top part done, just gorgeous. She has actually, it calls for DMC, but she's actually converted it to overdyed cottons. I will probably do the DMC. We'll see. I love that. That big tree. Love it. This is another one, and actually I have this one kitted with DMC. Someone asked me about my thread drops for DMC. Yes, I put DMC on thread drops as I need them. So as I kit something up, I put it on thread drops. The ones that I have, are duplicates or whatever, I keep in Ziploc bags by series, like 200s, 300s, etc. And then I have them in a big basket. So if I need a color that I don't yet have on a thread drop, I'll go search for it in that. I used to bobbinate, but I can do these thread drops really fast. Bobbinating always seemed like it takes a long time. Plus, I used to get those crinks all the time when I'd unwrap it from the bobbin, so I kind of like this. And that way I can just pull one strand off as I stitch. And this one, did I even say? This one is called the Country House Sampler. I love all those trees. I love this, all the stuff that's going on down here in the grass. There's people, there's a little bench. It's just pretty fabulous. Nice border. And I have a piece of 40 count Old Town Blend with that. And so here's like a couple colors that I haven't done thread drops yet, but I will. And some of these ones, that don't necessarily recommend a certain linen. I just go play with them and think, you know, see what lays nicely. Okay, what's next? Oh, I have just a few more, and then I'm probably going to let you go because my voice is dwindling, fading. I'm not going to take these out of the bag, so forgive me, but, well, I might. I lied. A couple of these are country sampler kits. This one is by Chessie and me, and it's called Mary Lindsay. It very much has a similar feel to Elizabeth Hunter, with the alphabets at the top and then the motifs. Mary Lindsay by Chessie and me. Lindsay spelled A-Y versus my daughter spelled E-Y. This one is by Stacy Nash. It's called the Hannah Jenkinson Sampler. Again, a country sampler kit. And it's done on a darker linen, ale, by Picture This Plus. So that'll be fun to stitch. Love my dark and dirty. This one's almost like a Christmas, well it is. It's Peace and Goodwill sampler. And this was another kit from Country Sampler, and this one is by Chessie and me. Love the red house. Two more. This one's the Brick House sampler. I think Brenda did this and has it framed. I really would like to start this one soon. Let me see if I can, let me take it out of the package because I can't get it to play nice. This one is not, I mean, I've kitted it, but it's not something that was kitted before I got it. It actually is, the pattern, it's done over one on mushroom, or it's done on Lugana. I'm going to do it on 46 count, 1/2. It'll be a little bit bigger. So the problem with that would be nothing. Stables at Hollyberry Farm by Stacy Nash. Love it. Which, by the way, she had an Instagram post this morning, and I've been delinquent in posting on Instagram. I just feel like my pictures don't show up very well, but I do have some things I need to post. But anyway, she talked about her home and how it was a dream home, and then after they bought that house, it's like a classic farmhouse, and after they bought it, then her sister moved in not too far away, and now it's either her daughter or son is going to be moving in hopefully soon down the street, and it's really a nice post about how blessed she is and how nice their home is. So kudos to Stacy Nash for having the house of her dreams. And that's all the stitching I have to show you. I have been doing a little bit of quilting. Some of the quilts I've done are actually quilts that I have. So if you're done with stitching and you don't want to see quilts, bye. I have a lot of my own quilts that are pieced, but not quilted, because it's like the cobbler's kids who have no shoes. But anyway, I've tried to dig out some, I'm trying to clean up my sewing area and actually get rid of some fabric. And but aside from all that, I'm finding some pieces that I had almost finished, or I had the blocks finished, but I just never put them all together. And this is one of them. It's a primitive quilt. Back when I used to work at the quilt shop, we did a block of the month called Girl Gang. It was put out by the designer Jan Paddock, who was very much a primitive. She designs for Moda as well as her own patterns. And she does a lot of primitive quilts. And so I found all the blocks to this. I think it was called Home and Hearth quilt, but it was part of that Girl Gang block of the month. So I'm going to back up a little bit so you can hopefully see it. But I also have a picture that I'm going to insert at the end. And I'm also going to insert a couple pictures of quilts that I had pieced a long time ago. And I recently quilted, and now I just have to do the bindings, which I still have many, many more to quilt. But this is Hearth and Home. I don't know what you're seeing. I'll show it to you in two parts. So the top has this angel, some stars, a bee skep, and then there's a section that I embroidered. You can't really see, but it has alphabet embroidered very primitively. Stars, a house, and another house. But anyway, I'm going to insert a picture of that. And I'm going to insert two other pictures of quilts. And as I get more done, I've also kind of gotten out my rug hooking things and thought, I just need to bite the bullet and finish. I have two little small rugs that I need to finish the binding. Kathleen's Trodden Trail floss tube. A couple years ago, she showed me detailed at I think we were at the Midwest cross stitch retreat. She showed me how to finish my rugs. Have I done it? But thanks for the tutorial, and I hope I remember everything you taught me. So anyway, that's about all I have. That's about all my voice is going to last. So I hope you all have a good weekend, and hope you get a lot of stitching done. So it's good to see you. Love you. Bye.